Hi, and welcome to the Dead Web Club podcast. My name is Thomas Wolskar. In this episode, I'm talking to Joerg Droege from Scene World. We talk about communities, both online but also in the real world. We talk about podcasting, disc scenes, Commodore 64s, and the refresh hertz of TV. Note that Joerg had a flu when I interviewed him earlier this year. If you have any comments, ideas, please send an email to info@deadweb.club.
So I'm Joerg Droege, being active in the scene since April 1st, 1998 under the scene handle NAVCOM and have been founding People of Liberty in February 1999. Back then with Lost Brain, also called Silver Fox now. And it started out as a disc mag for NTSC and Paul Commodore 64 machines, as you said. But then it branched into a podcast. And yeah, it became much more than that. Not only podcast, but also each year since 11 years, we are also at Gamescom, which is the biggest games fair in the world, and show the disc mag in the retro area at family and friends to small children and big children who either don't know what the fuck discs are or they remember it from their old childhood. It depends on who you ask. Yeah, so it became a big hobby project consisting of 20 something people around the globe. You met one of them, Taco Helena, who's one of our founding members from the Netherlands. We have people from Peru, America, also all sorts of places. And this enabled us to just do some crazy stuff because, as you said, there's no other disc mag that plays on NTSC hardware, which runs on 60 hertz and 110 volts, and on European hardware, which runs on 50 hertz and 220 to 240 volts. So we are the only one. And even with the podcast, we are the only one that is reaching out so much, considering the topics and the range of guests we have. So what we do as Scene World in the name itself is we are trying to think very global because I was raised this way as a child and became that way as an adult. We are uh, covering things more globally than other podcasts would. If you compare to other projects, they would be like, nah, that's too much. We are maniac enough to do that.
And just to maybe to clarify, maybe people don't know, like, so NTSC, that's like the frequency rate on in the US, like traditionally on TV. The PAL one, 50 hertz?
Yeah, I'm not a technician, but it started out that the electric beam of the television that would do the drawing of the Canon beams on the screen would be synced to what's coming out
Yeah,
as a frequency out of your power
yeah.
outlet. But it stayed this way even in the digital world. So
Okay.
even nowadays, you have different TVs, HDMI, despite it's digital,
Mm.
there is still this difference between 50 hertz and 60 hertz when it comes to
TV media supremacy, I guess. I mean, stuff has changed since you started, like when you as a group started Scene World. So in 2001, like
well,
you had like
officially
a
we
website.
started we
I mean,
officially
like
we started sorry,
yeah.
officially we started November 1st, 2000.
Okay. I was thinking how, because I mean, like it's like our topic is on this podcast about like the internet,
Yeah.
how it changed stuff. So I was like thinking, like when because as a disc mag, it was like, for other people don't know, it's like, it's like a magazine on a floppy disk, and then the topic of the scene was like gaming or group or news or development, and just that has also changed, like how technology's moved on. So
Right.
how would you think as a group making a disc mag how that's like changed over time and like
A lot.
for making it.
A lot, because you have to know that I still was on dial-up myself. So it was like before going to education for my IT degree, I would sign in to the dial-up internet, blocking the phone lines, obviously. And at that time in the 2000s, our coder in UK only had an internet TV set-top box. You only could write with a controller and an on-screen keyboard, like to send emails. Every time he wanted to send a file, he actually had to send physical disk to me. Yeah, and also voice over IP wasn't as big as it is now. So I would still do traditional phone calls with Italy and Canada. It was a lot of analog and a lot of weeks of waiting to get anything done. That was it. The way I put the team together was actually two people. One was Dustin Chambers from Canada. Fuzz is his name in the scene. He sent me an email with people from America who would be willing to help. Alex de Vries from the Netherlands sent me a fax with people from Europe who might be willing to help. Among those people was Jerry Ellsworth, who is one of the most known computer engineers nowadays. This is how I started it 25 years ago.
So like it's really just between like friends who recommended another person, sent an email, that sent a fax, and
yeah, exactly. So it was a lot of phone calls, fax, and stuff.
Like over time, there's more people in the group now.
Yes, around 20. Some people left because of family, life-changing events. We even had one case of a member unfortunately dying of heart failure. And that's understandable when you have a project that is around since 25 years.
People coming and going.
So nowadays, it's a lot easier to have email, Discord, voice calls. And also, I met some people in person. I went to Lima visiting our graphic artist, and I went to New Jersey visiting AJ. I went to UK visiting Andrew Fisher. I did a bit of a few crazy things just for Scene World, let's say.
Yes, also it's like you're like now you're kind of like an online kind of community, but you also like there's a lot of meeting in person.
Yes, at Gamescom, that's a place where we meet in person because we have to build up our booth and do interviews in the business area about new retro games. Sometimes when it fits, our member from Lima is joining us. So it's so we are living it, I mean, you saw it yourself. We sent Taco your way. So we are really trying to get people out there in places when possible. So we are not totally online focused as a project.
Also, I've noticed, like Commodore 64, older kind of retro gaming, but then on the other hand, you have the podcast, you have a lot of interviews with younger people who maybe do retro-esque indie development. You have a Fear magazine that does it's like a magazine all about like horror and fear in games. So
yeah, that's true. Our guests are pretty mixed. That's true. Yeah.
Is that because you guys, the interest in a lot of varied stuff?
Exactly. It's like, okay, this person sounds cool. Let's invite her. Or that project sounds cool. Let's cover it. Pretty much. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because I mean, like some people say, oh, it's like all this old stuff, but they are kind of more newer stuff. And you go to events, I guess, or to cons.
Also, yeah. If you look it up, for example, in episode 185, we had Eleonora Sayaka, which is an Italian YouTuber in her 20s. I actually discovered her before she became a big retro YouTuber, if you check out the YouTube version of that podcast, there are constantly people commenting on it. How weird it is that a young person in her 20s is interested in Commodore 64 and computers before that and stuff. It is important because the Generation Z, how it's called nowadays, is actually our future. Let's face it, me, you, we won't be around anymore at some point. And then somebody has to take the torch. That is also why I was very happy to be interviewed by Floppy Total, because for AJ and I, it was like young people doing research about these cats long, long before they were born. And I was like, wow, this is the future, because we will be all dead by then. It's very important to have these research projects covered for the future. It's not becoming lost knowledge. That would be the worst. That is why I really appreciate when there are projects and teams coming together,
I
like
think
yourself.
I think that's like kind of part of like it's a generation now that is. I mean, I think some like LAN parties got like a boost because like people in the 20s and 18 want to meet up in real life and play together. And
I guess that is why the TikTok generation is so much. Oh, sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. Yeah, got a bit of a cold here. Anyway, what I wanted to say is, yeah, I think the fascination for old technique, especially analog, is probably the reason why the TikTok generation, 18, 17, 16, early 20s, is so into vinyls since the last 10 years. Vinyls were so dead that the production machines to make good quality vinyls were taken apart, and they had to take people from retirement to get those machines running again. The technology to make vinyl discs, knowledge was almost lost. In the last moment, there came a hype for vinyls. But people have no idea how close it was.
I heard that they got older machines to set up, and now I think recently they were producing new machines.
Exactly. And you can actually get custom-made record players, like very expensive. Like you can get a used car for that amount of money. It's crazy. Interestingly, the same is happening now with compact cassettes, music cassettes.
There's also a lot of people now that are creating newer versions of older computers. You can buy like not even a Raspberry Pi Amiga, but you can buy like even like there's a whole industry of people making retro computers.
Exactly. Especially Darren Mailburn and his Retro Games Limited from UK. He's the one who brainchilded the DTV, the Direct to TV C64 in 2004. And yeah, he's getting the licenses for making the Spectrum and the C64 Maxi and the C64 Mini, and yeah, so that's actually true.
No,
yeah,
because I remember a period of time I had access to some older computers. At that time, nobody saw value of it, and then of course, you got rid of it. And now
it's true. I got a lot of machines for 30 euros. You get like chunks of stuff.
And now people are just craving for it. Basic graphic cards from like 94, 95 go for
PC retro, especially DOS machines. It's crazy. You say that Commodore 64 Amigas and stuff are expensive? Go to retro PC. Oh my god.
That's where the money is.
Wow. The same happened when I was taking apart the household of my grandfather. He used to have one of those Epson portable computers, and it turned out it was the first laptop ever produced.
Was that I always forget there was like
Epson machine. I don't recall its name, but I know I looked it up in 2010 and it was like 600 euros. Oh my God. I still have it. I never sold it. I was like, no, this is becoming mine.
it's a family treasure. Eh?
Exactly. All he did was printing very fine labels, you know. So when he got cable TV on the back of the remote control, he would have a list of all your TV channels. And that is what he used it for. That was the whole intention of having this machine.
A simpler time.
Exactly. It worked. And yeah.
Computers, I think also I mean, like all technology tends to die after a while. Either it's like a capacitor that blows up or battery that leaks, but you can.
It was never an issue for him because he knew how to repair the stuff. So it's never a problem for him.
How big is Scene World? Do you have any how many readers or people listen to the podcast?
Good question. Well, I mean,
it changed maybe from episode to episode.
Yeah, depends on guest, depends on topic. I can tell you that we did have the issue a couple of times that we were at free hosting first, and we always were the headache of any web hoster because we had so much traffic that at some point they shut us down for 12 days. So since March last year, we are actually at DreamHost, and despite its shared hosting, we get so much resources because it's virtually unlimited and it's like a non-issue now. But I would say on a good episode, perhaps between 5,000, 6,000 listeners per episode. Well, it depends. I mean, we cannot really catch all because some people listen to it over archive.org.
Yeah.
Other people listen to it over the website. That we can track, but others just get it from other places. So
yeah,
it really depends.
Also, then depends a bit. We have an interview with someone, and then 4 years later, that's the topic, and people wanna. So I mean, people listen to in different time periods. So
yeah, that could also happen. We had this issue with Commodore Italy, who did the pet phone. A YouTuber picked it up a few years later and made a special YouTube video. We were the only publication getting the pet phone for review. Suddenly, this interview from, I don't know, at this point, 5 years back, suddenly everybody was like, oh, I have to listen to that. That's very interesting. So yeah, so you never know. So that is why it's good to not be disappointed if an interview is doing not as good, because it could be in a few years following.
Maybe it's sometimes really hard to pick a favorite or something. But do you have any episodes of the podcast in particular, either want people to listen to or maybe check out or favorite?
Good question. Well, I mean, my personal ones that I was very excited always was when we got something exclusive. For example, we spoke to Charles Ceclil about Broken Sword. He is one of the big game designers for adventure games from the 90s and still nowadays. He is a pioneer. And then there was this fan-made game, Broken Sword 2.5, and Germans, by the way, and one person from Lithuania. So it became an international team this way. They never did an interview. I managed to track down the PR person of that team, and he was so long time ago, because it was 2008 when the game was finished, not interested. But he asked one of the project managers, Marius Gosh, and he said yeah, no problem, let's do it. So this interview, episode 202, glorious.
It will be added to the show notes so people want to check it out. They can check it out. I played Broken Sword myself, so I have some memories. Broken Sword 2. It starts with an explosion in a cafe in Paris, I think.
Yeah, the first one did.
Memory is a bit fuzzy then.
Yeah. But I suggest you, because now you know it's free, get ScummVM and play Broken Sword 2.5. The fan-made.
Check it out.
It's
maybe it's a nice, because I mean, ScummVM, for people who don't know it, is it's been a default now to emulate a lot of classic games. But You have an emulation of the floppy scenes. Disk scenes were like on like physical floppy disk, but now you can check them out online.
Topic before, because you mentioned ScummVM, we also interviewed Eugene Sandulenko, the project maintainer of ScummVM. So perhaps that's also a good interview. Yes, that's true. On our homepage, we have Vice.js. It's a JavaScript implementation of the Vice emulator. If you're lucky and the resources aren't full, you can watch the issue on the website. But if your web browser, unfortunately, is resource-wise on its end, then you're getting sound buffer overflow. But that's unfortunately a browser thing we can't control. So you might try out a few browsers or restart your browser with a fresh instance to get enough resources.
Would that work?
Probably not, because it's tab-related resource management, and you can't really control as a user how much resources are giving to a tab in a browser. So it's really trial and error, but that's the way the technology works. Unfortunately, I would like to use the implementation from archive.org, but archive.org has the issue they don't support mouse and they don't support 1/3-inch disks. Because of that, we can't use their implementation, but hopefully at some point in the future they could fix it. That would be nice.
Maybe is a question I try to ask everyone who's guest on, like, what is your kind of first memory of the internet?
In Germany, we had projects, school projects, and I've read about the internet, and one of the projects was connecting to the internet. And in this project, every project takes a week, and we actually dialed into a phone line using ISDN, and that was my first knowledge. Like a computer, 7 people sitting around, and everybody getting turns, writing into the address bar some homepage that they want to visit.
Like we were surfing together as a group.
Exactly, that was my first memory. I remember one of the IT guys of the school trying frantically to set up the ISDN line, which is not so easy because you need to go to German Telecom and make a contract for a week and get a phone number to dial in. And this for a school district with 21 buildings. That was an undertaking because they are not used to such kind of stuff. All for just a week.
My impression from kind of like, I mean, this would be the 90s for me. Like a lot of schools and stuff, like a school had a website because they had a teacher that had some interest into it. It wasn't like a wide national, it was more like a guy who had an interest was like, okay, I will make a website for my school. It's more relying on individual interest. I think even at my school, one of the parents gave us an old IBM to the classroom so we could try out computer stuff, because it was kind of not a like a larger thing in the school system.
Well, a few years after that, the school got a whole computer room with modern computers, like 25 computers, and a T1 direct line to the ISP. So no more dial-in. It was blazing fast. So that is what happened a few years later.
It jumps a bit from dial-up straight to
Yes. We jumped from dial-up to DSL for individual people. In Germany, DSL was 1999. That is when DSL was introduced in Germany. Yes, and so that was for the individual at home. And for the companies, they get a T1 steady line. That's how it goes. Nowadays, your cable TV lines or your fiber TV lines are good enough for business too. Then you needed a dedicated steady line.
People would say when you connected to the internet, it would scream back at you.
But that is actually because people think it's screaming or scramble, but
Yeah.
it's actually on the internet you can get a sheet where it actually explains each step. So it's actually very coordinated dialogue between the remote computer and your modem. So it's very similar to fax similar. So it's actually not screaming.
No, but I think the metaphor people like always.
True.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's memories ask them. It's kind of connected to the internet would have a sound.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, but that was the beauty of having steady line at school. You would just turn on the computer and be instantly connected. That was like magic. And I remember when that time came around, I would always try, because I was at a school that had a teaching full day. So I was always trying to find a reason to do a research and in the internet in 98, 99, year 2000. Those 3 years, I always tried to find excuses to get the key for the computer room.
What's coming up for Scene World?
Gamescom in August. We have our first meeting call to book our table, our booth. Then the coming weekend, so that would be early July, we will have an interview with Taylor Lorenz, which is a big independent tech journalist, originally coming from Washington Post and so on, from traditional media. That will be very, very interesting because she's very controversial. So I guess this episode will probably have thousands of people listening to it. Definitely.
This episode is a bit later in the year, so if it's out when this podcast is coming out, I will add it to the show notes.
Sure. I can only tell you so much because we don't plan ahead for ages.
It's more like a month by month or week.
Exactly. I can only tell you what's happening for July and August. But we also have an interview in the shelf for Walter Day and his new movie about the music album he produced. He moved from being a scorekeeper for arcade games to being a musician at 76, starting a new career.
It's never too late for anyone.
And we got Ed Cunningham, who is the producer of that movie. So that will be an exclusive. Yeah, so we got some exclusives there.
Nice.
Thanks for inviting me. It was fun.